on.
Okay, so cognitively, can you pass a cognitive test that they give Trump? Not Joe Biden, Donald Trump.
Okay, I'll bite. What is this test?
Well, he says that he passes them way past what most people can pass.
I see.
Of course, he's always superlative on that kind of stuff.
Yes. Beyond what anybody's ever seen before.
Ever seen before. Yeah.
He says it on everything.
And after he says it, he says, I can tell you that.
Yeah, I can tell you that. Yeah, that's right. He does say
so I can tell you that. The best ever, everybody ever seen ever in history and future history.
I can tell you that.
I can tell you that. That I can tell you. That I can tell you. Yeah. What a guy.
Yeah.
Anyway, I thought we'd next broadcast. This is Catch the Vision, and we're dealing with leadership for like ever.
Yeah.
And I've got some people tuning in, so Richard, maybe Dennis, maybe a few of the guys tuning in, and we're going to do a little bit of a review, and then we got to get this blurb together that introduces me and you and the Catch the Vision thing, and those pictures are great, I think. So I thought we'll do a little practice session. I think will be interesting to others. It's to touch base on some of the things we touched on about leadership from our perspectives. And by the way, his perspective is mine's right. Let's put it that way. That's all. His perspective is, it depends on who you hang out with.
Perhaps.
No, I highly respect.
I can tell you that.
That I can tell you.
That I can tell you.
And I know I respect Mike, and he's got a lot more go on the ball and after certain things that I would never even touch. And I'm not just talking about. We got to have a blurb. That I was thinking of. What do we call this guy? Mike Shilabotnik Cornwell, coder, technician, business owner, BSer. We got to have that kind of like a blurb thing, because all mine is just ex-pastor. Whoopee. You know?
Every time I write these things, John, I always have to like start over. Those kinds of things. I don't write it for me. I write it for the person who's reading it. That's how I do it. So it's like depends on
maybe you got
who they are. But then I'll get this kind of like weird guilt trip because I'm like, oh, maybe I should put my family first. So I'm like,
you can't do that.
Family man, like father of four. Okay, and then everything else is for the person reading it and not for me.
Well, it is more important, family man and father of four. That is more important.
It is actually when I stop for a couple seconds and think about what do I actually care about, like where am I going? It's like, yeah, okay, that's got to go in the front now because my primary plan in life has nothing to do with y'all.
Well, you got to really.
Like, who am I leading? Maybe that's another way to look at this is like, who are you actually leading?
Yeah.
And then you tell people. I mean, I think that I didn't really think about it till now, but that could be worth stating.
For the people who are watching it, and to avoid being boring, we can't talk about ourselves. You know what I'm saying? But technically,
isn't that what we're supposed to be doing on this podcast?
Yeah, So
this is like, in review, I guess.
Yeah, in the review, I want to bring up, like we talked about aspects, downfalls, failures, all kinds of different things that leaders need to be aware of. I felt anyway.
Yep.
You did too. The stuff you talked about, and then we.
While you're talking, John, I'm going to pull up my YouTube channel so I can at least see the headlines from the past year or whatever.
So we talked about the fact that leaders have to be with it and up to snuff on the things that are going on nowadays. You can't just be, I don't know what's going on. I don't care. I don't care about the world. And I don't care about the latest topics and stuff. And I don't pay attention to politics. And I don't pay attention to sports. And I don't pay. what happens is you just limited yourself to a great degree by saying that. But also, there are other things about leadership that's interesting. Like when we're not the main leader, we're looked over. We're like, in other words, we're passed over, and we don't get the connection or the recognition or the appreciation that we deserve. And yet we can't go up there and say, "Hey, what about me?" Because that would be antithetical of what we're really talking about. Because we also talked about a leader has to some degree, die to himself. He has to kind of, get away from himself in order to be conscious of the people around him or under him or with them. So that's important too, as far as leadership goes.
One of the things that I I saw here, which was 3 months ago, we talked about like the current disposition of people in 2026. That was a big one we talked about, which is like, what do people think about the future? Those kinds of things. To add to that, I recently I went to like this kind of small conference, this like cybersecurity conference in Georgia, like, I don't know, 3 weeks ago or something like that. And while I was going down, I was like, you know what, I might as well listen to an audiobook or something like that. And I had seen a book mentioned on a website I went to. And it was basically like a historical, factual account of the events leading up to, during, and after the 1929 crash. And so it was a very enlightening book. It was written in the 1950s, I think. So by a person that had was alive during that time and all that. So I want those perspectives. Somebody really close to the action, time frame wise. And then after that, I ended up listening to another book that was mentioned in that same article, which was like this kind of like goes, I'm trying to remember what it's called. It's like reminiscences of a stock operator or whatever. So it was a person who was like the most famous stock trader from like the 1910s to the 1950s or something like that, 45 or something like that. And so, like the combination of those two, I started really getting like an understanding of what like the experience was like in 1929. And one of those things that I was wondering was like, what I was trying to figure out was like, are we in 1929 now, or are we in 1927, or are we 1935? Like, where are we? And if I had to guess, we're in all three at once. So because on one hand, the 1920s apparently was unequivocally prosperous time.
Roaring 20s.
Yeah, for all people. And it wasn't just like the wealthy. It was like all people. Then in 1929, they had the stock market crash. And a big question in that book was like, why did the stock market crash cause the depression of the 30s? Because it's actually not very obvious. And even like listening to it, it's not super obvious. But in that particular case, and this kind of matters on what we're talking about here and who we're leading and what world we're leading in, all this stuff actually matters. Matters to me because in like the strategic picture that I'm putting together that directly involve people, I'm taking specific actions that relate to literally what I'm telling you right now. That's why I would even read this. Why would I care? And the preface is that I believe that there could be a 1929 around the corner. That's a belief, so I wanted to listen to this. But they're fundamentally different. That's one thing I pulled away with. But one thing that was really interesting was the amount of the economy that was being run by wealthy people spending. Because when wealthy people get money, like lots of money, they can't really spend it. There's only two things they can spend it on: luxury goods or capital goods, i.e. like building new factories and this and that. That is literally why the stock market and all assets have been going up for a long time. That isn't like, none of this is to say that it's good or bad. People immediately want to say, well, that's bad. And it's like, maybe. It just is. Here's the problem though. Once it got concentrated in their hands, once the stock market collapse happened, there was no longer an avenue for this money to flow, and it took out a third of the entire economy. Just from the stock market collapse alone, took out a third of the economy. Now, if you can imagine, if you take out a third of an entire economy, it's bad. Now, all the other stuff, what didn't happen was there wasn't less demand all of a sudden, or they didn't like oversupply goods. So it wasn't like people no longer bought goods or whatever. But because of that, that basically smoked the majority of the money that was moving around in the economy, and that's what caused the Great Depression. Why this matters is we're in a situation in which it seems almost worse, where we're in a Great Depression of people like the middle and lower class are in a Great Depression, and it's an unacknowledged Great Depression, which means it's going to go on potentially even longer than the 1930s depression. It probably will go on for 30 years, John, because no one even acknowledges that it exists.
Well, in that vein, I would say as a leader, what I've always believed when it has to do with government, political, and monies, finance, is that one of the biggest things that drive this is fear.
Yeah, of course. For sure.
There's such a heavy duty. And so what happens is fear causes man to fall into a trap.
It's true. It's very true.
And so I would say, even though we may be in this philosophical depression that you call it right now, in a sense, not financial really, but in a philosophical kind of way we are, but not really. Finances and things are going up in one sense. But on the other hand, in our general public, we're kind of in that situation that you're talking about. But
well, the rich are living in 1929.
Yeah,
everybody's living past 1929.
Yeah.
For the average man, 1929 happened in 2008. And ever since then, it has been an unacknowledged global depression. You can look at every single statistic. It wasn't even like, it was like 10 years ago, I remember, it was 10 years, like 2016. Around that time, literally if China did not grow at like 8%, it was going to be very bad. China has negative growth now, like negative growth. That's the growth engine of the entire world. So the thing...
They're in negative growth now.
Yes.
I know.
They have been in recession and potentially consolidation for quite a while. Long story short, where all this stuff is going, like, and to kind of kick it back over to you, the reality is people experience this. So it's not clear to me, and even watching that video, why even a third of the economy going away where you're not part of that 1/3, how that really impacts you. But the reality being that there was a malaise for 10 years. And what's interesting about it, John, is all the stuff that conservatives talk about every single day were the acerbators to the 1930s depression that made the 1930s take longer. And the entire conservative population is demanding more of that now, right now.
Yeah, I think that's got an element of truth to it. I don't understand it fully, to be honest with you. But
they want to balance, for example, they want a balanced budget. They want all sorts of things that basically remove the ability to inject liquidity into the economy.
And they're trying to secure their place in the whole situation right now. Like, they think some of the things that they'll do will keep us going for a long time, and we'll be strong and we'll be great. But, you know, history says...
Well, what are you referring to?
Well, that's why conservatives... I mean, a lot of things that done... I'm talking on a global scale or a national scale. Humanity... conservatives, philosophical elements, or non-conservative, they all are doing things to protect themselves. They're trying to propagate themselves and perpetuate.
This is very true, man.
Perpetuate themselves.
Yeah.
And I'm saying, yeah, only trouble is where fear comes in,
yeah, they
are diverted to their end. It's not, I know this sounds fatalistic, but they're not going to preserve themselves in perpetuity. They're not going to forever preserve themselves, because history teaches us change is the only thing that is going to go into perpetualness is change.
Yeah,
and change is going to come, and people are scared to death of that change and so they do what they can because they're afraid. So they do what they can to keep that from happening, and that's the very reason why it's not going to work because it's fear-based. We talked about this thing.
John, you're on the money. It definitely, I would 100% agree with you across the board that all of what we talked about is fear-based.
Fear-based.
To include, for example, like a balanced budget. Why have a balanced budget? People are not, we could spend some time at some point, going into the depths of why it literally makes no sense to have a balanced budget when if you have a debt-based monetary system. If the government creates a balanced budget, you actually destroy the economy. It's like that's just not how this. That's not how this works. But we don't have enough time to talk about this, and I'm not like a monetary, an MMT proponent. I just know what MMT actually is and says. There's certain parts that are 100% accurate, and then there's other parts that are speculative that are not helpful. But the main thing is people are afraid that their thoughts and their conclusions will come into the case, and so then they're going to try to control it.
Right,
I would not.
That's where the fear comes in. That's where the fear-based actions are happening.
Yeah, and I would not disagree that some of my actions around this relate to that as well, but in the sense that I'm concerned that these things could happen. Therefore, trying to set my family in this, and anyone around me in this certain kind of way that kind of mitigates those instances.
Yeah.
But I definitely am not, we'll say, Chicken Little to it. I mean, I consider him,
well, the sky is falling.
I mean, I take actions all the time. I mean, I just spent the last 6 months selling options on the stock market for a bull market to happen, and I was doing just fine, and then I got murdered. So, like, everything I made, I was like, all gone, and then all of that was a loss. So, and the whole point of that...
I would call that murder.
the whole point, and what that activity was doing is saying, hey, no, these things are going to continue to go up. I wouldn't be doing that if I didn't think that things were going to be continuing to go and all that other kind of stuff. What people do that I've seen in that regard, like a friend of mine, he's like, I've been out of the stock market since 2008 because I've been waiting for it to crash. It's like, bro, you missed the largest bull run in American history. Because you were afraid. Yeah, fear-based.
Well, here's another thing that's interesting that I want to say for leaders they have to be aware of. Not only is the what do you call it? The conglomerate of humanities endeavors and whatever government or philosophical endeavors you're in, the key that's going to happen is change, which we don't like.
Yeah.
And so we do, in a fear-based way, we do things that we hope will perpetuate the good and the things that we like. But it's not only, I just think as a leader, we have to be aware of this fear-based action and not be too susceptible to fear-based action personally. I remember listening to a man of God had said, one thing you need to do is hear what God's telling you to do. You need to hear from God no matter what, because nowadays those that aren't hearing are off on a whim or an idea and they think it's great, but then we find out 10 years, 20 years later it's no good. It fell off because actually it wasn't hearing from God. They were just seeing what they thought they could do to perpetuate themselves, and they didn't think it would ever change because they got it together. I used to laugh, like when I went through a pothole or I saw a television program say, we got technical difficulties or something like that. I used to keep saying, man-made junk. Man's got it so down pat. He doesn't need God. We've made it perfect. Now we got AI. AI is going to take over the world, and it's so brilliant. And I'm saying it's man-made junk. It's man-made. If it's man-made, it's got change coming, and it's not going to perpetuate forever and ever and ever.
Yeah, that's right.
So our faith and our hope is not in what these yackers talk about. It's great, the greatest time ever it is. There was a time where it was a boom market, but it also changed.
Yeah. So
we have to be hearing what God's saying, not just go off on a tangent and do what we think we should do in order to perpetuate stuff. You got to be careful about that. You got to be sensitive to what God is saying, because He's not going to lead you astray. And leaders need to know that. Leaders need to, if we're looking to our leader to lead us into the woods where to go, he's got to be a little bit aware of what's going on and have this understanding, by the way, that in a way, nothing's new under the sun. That man is really kind of stuck in his own manness, or whatever you want to call it. I'm not doing this very well, but I'm just saying, man, you can't build something that's going to last forever and ever and ever, and then we're going to say, yeah, we didn't need God, we did this. Come on, give me a break. You're just not going to get there.
I mean, the first thing that came to mind on that is Elon Musk's whole, like, we got to leave the planet. You can leave the planet.
By the way, we did talk about Musk looking at things with a telescope.
Yeah.
But he can't see anything in the microscope.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? He's not looking here. He's looking out there, and that's where he is, way out there.
His entire vision for humanity is fear-based. I don't know how to put it any more clear than that.
It's fear-based.
He thinks that if we do not get off the planet and have multi-planetary species, we are at like near guaranteed risk of extinction. Like that, and so
that's hopeful.
So therefore, he convinced a lot of people to go with that vision, and that's why they're building their thing that they're building.
Yeah.
To me, it's not really as compelling. It's not very compelling. But I
don't think it is.
What I want to do is kind of like in a retrospective, is kind of explain a little bit about what the two of us bring to the table from what I see. So first I'll start with myself, which is why I'm even talking about this in the first place, which is I tend to be a little bit more analytical is the words that you use to describe it.
Yeah, you are.
It's true. What that ends up being is I'm like an observer type by nature. I look at stuff. I look for patterns. I observe data, although that is not the most interesting thing to me. I'd rather look at data just to confirm my suspicions and intuitions. So one of the things that I'm a skilled practitioner in, which is evidenced by my behaviors over many, many years, is I have the ability to consume abstract information and deal with information very abstractly. So this is why I have like my library set up how it is, which is like one side is theoretical concepts, and then the other side is like, I'd say less theory and more concrete practical things like business and science and stuff like that. Whereas, and you'll note I did not include math and science and with philosophy because it's just fundamentally not. But so I've read a lot of philosophy over the years, and one thing I've just found as a result of this is that I'm very good with like computers. And why am I good with computers is primarily has to do with the fact that I understand how things nest in each other. I say like Lego blocks. I can see how the blocks connect together, how they have a certain kind of form and a certain kind of shape, and combining them together. It's very utilitarian. So what it can look like to an observer type, other than chaos, is they'll see it looks like analysis or analytics or things like that. I would say it's more like I'm a walking dictionary of categories. That's like probably the primary thing. That probably makes no sense to most people, but that's what it actually is. So when I look at you, so now I'm going to put the categorical lens on you. Certainly, you have this kind of pastor bent, this kind of leadership with God bent. I have a little bit less than that, and mostly because I don't really feel the need to talk about those things unless it like makes sense. But to me, those things, everything that you say always makes sense because it's like fitting into how things are. So it's like categorically, those are all correct. And we have discussions about various people who have also attempt to opine on religious type things, and those things do not cohere in reality. And it's kind of painful to listen to them because they have a very heavy-handed on things that like it's just things like they'll use a measuring stick of is it biblical or not, and it doesn't literally mean anything. It just means like I found a few words in the Bible, and then ergo I'm going to air jump that they mean this from here to there, and it's like that's not what that concept means. Like, and there's also ambiguity in the language, but it's very clear that and I know why. The reason why you have this ability is because your temperament enables you to have that. Enables, because you wouldn't be able to do it if you did not have an abstract control of an abstract understanding of language, and you have a cooperative bent. Which,
Are you saying I'm a sage?
yes, that is the term that David Kiersey in Please Understand Me Too, a psychology book, uses to describe the aspirations of an idealist person is a sage, a person who knows but doesn't really know they're not a wizard. That's my side.
No, they're not a wizard.
I'm a wizard.
So, yeah. So,
And to tell you how much I know, how good and brilliant that book is, other people who are like me, if I say a wizard, they get like a twinkle in their eyes and they get excited that, yes, a wizard.
you mean like Gandalf? No.
Yeah, yes, they say they'll watch The Lord of the Rings and they'll be like, the only person who's good is Gandalf. And they'll be like, the guy that has like the tall tower or whatever. They'll say it's only those guys. Everybody else is just freaking useless.
Well, I can say about you, we used to take a course. It was called, Paul Joe did this, he Principles and Practices of Missionary Principles and Practices. And this is how I see Mike, is he sees things, he sees the practices. He sees those things that are being practiced in his techno area and his business and things like that. And he sees the practices. I'm more on the principle side.
Yeah, that makes sense.
I'm trying to say the principle is causing the practice. The principle can be relied on. The practice can't. You might be practicing something, but we can't rely on that because it's probably too introspective and coming out of you. But
yeah, it's true. The origin. Mm-hmm.
But if you have a principle that you can rely on, like the principle is if you run through wet grass, it just got rained on, your shoes are going to get wet. That's a principle. You can't change that principle. That's the way it is.
Yeah.
So I'm more about having, and I think in leadership,
well, it's funny.
You have to know principles.
It's funny. I would say that I am too, but it's a different set of principles that I am preoccupied compared to what you are. I am more preoccupied, like that example that you just gave there. I'm probably more in line with that. You're more in line with religious principles,
life.
What's the word? I guess you could say life. I'm talking about, like, for me, it's like physics. Like I literally ran into this case yesterday. I was talking to my wife about this person who does not understand anything technical, but like tries to pretend that they're technical, and she sent me a picture of this thing. I'm going to try to beat around all the bush on it. And I just took one look at it, and it was just like, it was so painful. It would be like someone trying to say, no, your feet don't get wet walking through wet grass. And I'm just, the closed eyes, totally unamused. Like, I'm so tired of dealing with these people that want to, like, they're like livestock. They want to kill themselves. Right? They want to, like, jump through the electric fencing and get caught and roll around in the electric fencing. Like, you have no business anywhere near this stuff. And I explained the principles of how this thing works. This highly technical thing to my wife, who can handle that information. And then all of a sudden, all was revealed. Oh, this just works like a giant battery. Okay, there's these sides. It's a closed loop system, because it's that. That's what those. And so I would agree with you, but my principles are a different set of principles.
Yeah. I think they are too, but I think I'm more on life principles than I am.
You're on people principles. Let's just call
people
it like
in
it
life,
is. It's
living
people
it out.
Principles.
Yeah, and people.
I'm on thing principles.
Yeah, I think that's correct.
Yeah.
So,
and I didn't come up with that. I pulled that directly out of David Kiersey's book, to be honest.
Yeah. Well, we have touched on in the leadership in this broadcast that we've been doing. We touched on things that affect leadership.
Yes.
Because we when we first started this out, we were noticing a void of leadership. And I talked about everything rises and falls on leadership, because the leaders out there, even though they weren't recognized leaders, they were leading people astray, and they didn't even know they were leading people astray. So that doesn't make them a great leader, but it does say they were leading.
Correct.
And that is not the definition of a good leader, of course, but there are men and women that lead people down a primrose path to stupidness and destruction and all that kind of thing. So I think what I'm trying to find is, what's the principle that oversees or governs that, or keeps that from happening, so that we know not to follow these charlatans that think they're leaders and they're not, or they're leaders but they're false leaders. They're leading the wrong way, and they don't have any principle. We talk about people that are like leaders who are unprincipled.
I'd say
that's the very thing I'm talking about. If you're unprincipled, you can't be trusted.
I'd say double downing what we're trying to do on this podcast is primarily, I think, to chew on how for us to lead without doing those things and or doing the better things.
Yeah, I think so. And we brought out points that are important to understand, because there are leaders listening who are very insecure. I remember another teacher telling me, he said, most of the leaders you see in the Bible or wherever are insecure.
Yeah, that's probably
They're
true.
not secure leaders. Moses was insecure and he killed the Egyptian.
Yeah,
David,
right.
insecure. I mean, every example of an insecure leader was in there. They're insecure leaders. And one day when I was working with another guy to kind of co-pastor in a church I merged with, so to speak, it became very clear to me that he was very insecure and had to have the spotlight and had to be in charge. And I was not immature about that. I didn't really need that recognition. I wasn't going for being in charge. I was going for serving the people and getting across principles of worship, of praise, of teaching, of walking, of living Christian life, et cetera, et cetera. And that fell on deaf ears with a leader who's insecure. So, and I found out that he had an anxiety about me because I was too principle-based. I was much too way based on certain principles that work and are true. And he had anxiety about it, and I looked at that, and over the years I learned, and this is a big thing for leaders, they had to confess that they're not in control. It's very hard to accept if you're a controlling, manipulative kind of guy. I'm not in control. If you don't admit that you want to have control and it's out of your control, you get anxious.
It's funny for me hearing this. Every person has experience with like trying to control something and failing or whatever. But
we're not talking about unique.
But for me, it's funny hearing this because I don't really have this, because I've always felt like I've operated from the sidelines anyway. So there's a thing going on, and then
you're a sideline guy anyway.
So if I'm on the sides and I'm watching it, right, this is like an observer experience. I'm just watching the thing happening. Ergo, I can't really control it, but I can influence it. So when I started listening to John Maxwell and him talking about, leadership is influence, I started to realize, okay, that makes sense. So I dug like really deep into this, and that's the whole game. So I became really compelled around this because the normal kind of person that gets into leadership, in my experience, is much more of a manager, a people type person, because they're normally in charge of, like a manager in many corporations. Whether it should be organized this way or not is a different story, but they're normally in charge of, there's a bunch of people and I need to get them to meet certain metrics or something. So they're engaged innately in the activity of leadership. But I started recognizing that, if leadership is influence and leadership is the success criteria of literally anything, it means that anybody can be a leader and anybody should. In fact, somebody has to become.
We all are in some degree leaders.
Yeah, I would agree. And so that's kind of was my awakening back in, I don't know, I'll throw it like 2015 was something around that time.
Let me give you a story of a leader who was influential in that he had a group of people get together, And nobody was in charge. No leader was there. Just a bunch of people. And they all said, let's sing and praise and sing some good Christian song or something. They started singing. They started to get excited, and they really liked it. And they started to get a little crazy, a little chaotic. And they started holding hands, and they were going around in a circle around the whole room, holding hands and doing this circle thing, and everybody kind of like a train. Then they would put their hands on the hips of everybody and do like a train. And they were doing all this crazy stuff. But there was no real, target in sight. They just acted the way they wanted to act, like a bunch of monkeys. But anyway, so the leader comes in. He sees this. Now, he could have said, quiet, stop. You idiots, listen to me. Sit down. And he could have taken charge that way. But instead, we watched him. He got in. He got into the train, and he put his hand in the hip, and they're going to train, but he kept slowing the train down. And then he slowed the people down. Then he started to move a lot slower than everybody else, and everybody began to realize that he's kind of like he's hindering what's going on here. Pretty soon he got to a point where he influenced everybody to stop, look, and listen to him and what his ideas were for that meeting. He did it by influence.
Yeah.
It's one thing to exert your leadership. Go ahead. But you don't understand that just because they obeyed you by yelling, screaming, and exerting your authority or whatever, you're not necessarily their leader. But when you become their leader by influence, you change the whole picture.
Yeah.
And people go, we better pay attention to him because he slowed us down and got us focused.
Yep.
And that's what I'm talking about.
Like
that's what I'm talking about. The practice was nice practice, but the practice is not good enough if you don't have some kind of principle.
Yeah, you got to deliver, and the delivering tends to be some sort of win. They have to have some sort of experience that there's a benefit to doing what you say, that your ideas or even your direction. It's not necessarily your ideas because the idea could come from somebody else, but you're then directing the use of that idea, that leadership is worth yielding to. So then you get the inevitable next experiences, which are the ones that drive me a little crazy, which is the coming to me for everything kind of problem. Once you start solving people's problems and all that kind of stuff, that it ain't shit. But I need to come to you on a couple of things. You gotta certainly gotta grow past that. That's where you like grow people and all this other kind of stuff. But I wrote in my leadership book about this because I spent a lot of time thinking about it, and it was just like revelation after revelation after revelation.
Give me that book. Right.
And one of the big things that I wrote about, even though I didn't. Here, I'll throw it. There you go.
There it is.
Yeah. It's over there. Bringing it closer doesn't make it more in focus, John.
Yeah, influence and leadership. Oh,
this is where it's in focus.
Well,
you see the green?
I knew that, but I needed a leader to help me.
Yeah, a technical leader.
Yeah.
Yes, these cameras are set in a certain kind of way. The principle of aperture matters here, John.
See, now there you go.
See, that's focal point.
See, that's what I'm talking about.
These are fixed lens
between
cameras.
Me and him, I'm a general gist guy. He's got these details. And like my wife, she drives me crazy on details. What'd you do today? 1 o'clock and then 1:15 and then 1:20, then 1:30 and then 1. I go, ho, back up the truck. Just tell me what you did today. Did good today? Yeah, I did good today. That's all I need to know. Good, you did good today. I don't need the details. So I'm the gist guy. But what you were saying was interesting because influence can determine whether you're a good leader or not, if you have some influence. Because influence is...
What do you mean by good? Because good has a lot of different terminologies.
Well...
And in my opinion, there are...
If you're influencing toward a good thing.
There are two goods. There's one good, which is a magnitude of any arbitrary quality. So, for example, you could be a good bad guy, for example. Good as in you are good at being a bad guy.
You could be a good
bad guy. That
is
one, and that I would say is actually much more common of what people say. Then there is good, which is the continuum or whatever of good and evil. I personally have noticed the pattern that good and evil tends to look like how D&D describes it, which is others and self. It's been very compelling to look at that, because before I came into like a Christian understanding of things, before I started kind of pulling these things and just going about flopping around in the world, I innately knew that if you look at like a D&D alignment chart, there's this type, lawful good. And lawful good is like a paladin. They're like they're like this positive person who's like trying to uphold order, but not just for order's sake, but also for like good. And I've seen that those people would be very bad. I would say that many Nazis were good. I know that's really hard for people to understand, but they had a good nature to what they were doing. They were trying to like help their like fellow man and their country and all that kind of stuff. That would be that definition of good, which is to help other people. There's no doubt in my mind that the predominant, you can't even get, I don't even think you can get anything off the ground without elements of good in it. Like back to this leadership thing, because the moment you start applying evil, and evil being for oneself, people are like, well, that's just for you, right? So the other person has to really start to kick up the for us, for you component, which by definition would be good. I know a lot of people have a hard time with that, but if you spend enough time, you spend some time on a mountain and sitting there and start thinking about it, you'll start to see how there is no element of good that involves just yourself. There is no element of good.
I agree. I think the teaching is, Jesus said, there's none good but God, meaning that he's the only one good. On the other hand, there's another scripture that says...
in totality.
Yeah, there's another scripture that says, overcome evil with good. And that may not be, in my mind, that you did was good to overcome that evil. It may be in your mind that good that you did overcame an evil. Yes. But in my mind, I'm like, wait a minute. You killed all those 70 infected germs, and that was good to overcome that evil? Well, okay, but maybe not. So I like the fact that you said there are good, bad people.
Or bad people
or who good at being bad.
And that there are bad people who are doing good things. Like there's
of course. Like me, I'm a bad guy, but I do good things.
I want to really hammer something you said there, that it is often the case that people, when they run into this ambiguity, which is a true, we'll call it philosophical ambiguity, the innate normal behavior is to go into an extremist point of view. And I would say that must be resisted at all. So the extremist point of view is,
definitely,
what you're saying can't be true, and it must be the case that good is only this. Because they're going to deal with this ambiguity of like, well, if good overcomes bad, then how can bad do these things? They start to get in and they start to wrestle with the philosophical ideas. That's actually a helpful thing to do, but the wrong choice is to just go, this is all crap. This can't be the way. It is actually difficult to tease out, and inevitably coming to things that are, guess what? Mystery, which guess what? Mystery is hard. Mystery is
extremely important.
You cannot, and why? And so in other words, if the Bible, for example, is very clear as mud, that there's these mysteries about it, it tells you that it must be the case that mystery is more towards the path of good than straightness and all this. And so a specific case on this would be like, whether or not you should judge people. And it's like, it's very clear. Okay, you can't pull out and determine if someone is good until the end. And so that's the tares parable. Are you pull out? Well, no, you can't. You can't do that because it may be wheat or it may be tares.
Also it may ruin the good.
Correct. So I would say that the Nazis figured that out.
Yeah, we need to, So the need for mystery is this.
I don't know if they did figure it out, but it perfectly applies to this situation.
In their minds they did.
Yeah.
So Mystery is so important. I'll tell you why, especially for leaders too. They need to understand that, like, if God gave us a book, here's the book on everything, and it's 100% perfect. Read it. It's only one chapter. One chapter, yeah. And that it's 10 pages. Wow, 10 pages. And so you read it and you memorize and you got it all down pat. Now we've got everything down pat. And then some monkey wrench, God throws a monkey wrench into the situation, and we go, oh, wait a minute, time out. That's not in the book.
Yeah, exactly.
That's mysterious. And he goes, because if I didn't allow for mysterious, you wouldn't seek me.
That's true.
Listen to me. He said,
Man,
of all the trees you can eat in the garden, you do whatever you want to in the garden. But don't you touch that tree. He didn't now he say not eat it. He said don't touch it. And we go, I mean, Adam and Eve should have said, why can't we touch it? And they had to be deceived. So the devil came and deceived her. So that deception came in for them to seek out and figure out if this mystery in the garden was any good or not. And they found out it was not good. And that mystery is better than no mystery.
John, you've really hit the nail on the head on this.
I know I did. I've been working on this for years. What do you think?
Well, it is funny. Because
what do you think I'm sitting down here with you, Mike?
It is funny because it's like, ignore your age and think about it. It's like, okay, if you don't figure it out by 70, when would you figure it out? Like, is it going to take all the way to 90 to figure this out? 100?
Well, you got to
am I never going to figure this out? But I mean, to your getting back to it, like, of course, somebody by 70 has at least figured some of this stuff out. The core thing there is, like, it's totally true, right? So if you didn't have mystery, you wouldn't have any part to the parable of Jesus. Well, it's not really a parable. Seek and you shall find. Right? So it's the nature of, like, seeking.
Or lose yourself and you'll save it.
It's the same thing in kind of what I was talking about here, like trying to tease these things out. Well, the exercise of seeking the answer, going through it, is the way. And people oftentimes, they don't want to do that. In fact, it's funny you say that, like, what would be in that book, the one chapter on these things, they would be stuff that would be so simple that people would actually refuse to believe that is the case.
Yeah.
And tying with that is a conversation I had the other day with my wife about these kinds of things, going like, we were like teasing out this kind of like biblical concept or whatever. Like, what does the Bible have to say on this topic? I'm not getting into it. It'll sidetrack us. But I eventually kind of came to the conclusion, because I couldn't really find anything in the Bible, and then eventually found this one random little phrase that Jesus said, which was like, this had to do with like people who are freeloading. And it just said, you came here for the bread because you ate bread and fishes. However, you have to follow me in order to, quench your hunger. It's like something along those lines. And it's like, that's the answer that Jesus would say. No one else is going to say that answer. And now I know that is the right answer, not because some freaking book said it, but because of the nature of that answer is so non-human. That is a non-animal answer, that is a non-judgmental answer. That is a welcoming answer. And in fact, if you were to read it in your own eyes, you would see it as like a possible dismissive.
Yeah. Well, you should have asked me, because the Bible is more than a freaking book. It's got some great stuff in it. We just don't,
it's fantastic.
We just don't know it.
It's beyond fantastic.
But listen to that.
What I'm saying, I'm very specifically and directly hitting between the eyes this nonsense that because the Bible says it in a literal term, it's somehow magical. It's just not a compelling argument, and it just makes people angry. If it makes people, consider for a moment, John, that if it makes people angry and start to hate you, you might be doing it wrong.
Yeah.
It has nothing to do with that it's a book, or that it's like a sacred book, or that it's any of that stuff. It just isn't. You'd be missing the point if you think that the book is that. Burn them all. Doesn't really matter. It has to do with the essence of the living words that are in it. Which is why, for example, a specific translation, not that important. could be kind of important to some extent, but it is not as important as people think it is.
Exactly. I agree. I mean, Jesus is not the scripture. The scriptures isn't Jesus, but
Correct.
those scriptures do speak of Jesus, and that's the whole thing about scripture. Scriptures do speak of him.
But if we didn't have a Bible and we oratized it, what would you do then?
Yeah, we'd have a problem. We'd have a real problem.
They would have a real problem, but we would not have a real problem.
Yeah, we would have a problem. Well, we still got the Spirit of God in us, but we need that reference. That's why I'm saying it. Listen to this scripture. It's a very interesting scripture.
Yeah,
it says, "It is the glory of God to conceal a thing, but the honor of kings to search out the matter." So, it's glory of God is the highest there is. There is no higher glory than the glory of God. And it conceals things, but the king, it's his glory and his honor to be able to seek and find that out. How would he go and seek out and find out stuff if there wasn't mystery? You got to have the mystery, or you actually, man will get to a point. This is what happened at the Tower of Babel, by the way.
This is so true.
And some people don't believe me, don't listen to me, but I'm telling you the Tower of Babel is because man had decided they don't need any mystery. They can keep working together until they build a tower right up into heaven. Then they are exalted. And God said, you guys are so puny, you don't even realize how puny you are. But so he confused their tongue. He said, let's do this. Let's confuse their tongues. Then they're not so smart, are they? So I'm saying that the desire to go bigger and greater and better, and man went to a pinnacle in the Tower of Babel, and God said, well, probably and it's actually very humbling what God did, because he could have just wiped it out, burned it up, but he could have done anything, but instead he said, nobody can understand anybody. Boom! Tower of Babel's over, because there's no understanding, because at that point, everything was a mystery. What did he say? I don't know. What did he say? I don't know. What did you say? What did you say? I don't know. What did we say? Suddenly, mystery everywhere, and the whole thing fell to nothing. So a lot of people don't think that way. By the way, here's another one, a little tidbit for you. Leaders, pay attention. Satan did not try to exalt himself to be God because of pride. I hear this over and over. Same old teaching. His pride, great pride. Well, he had great pride, but the purpose, the reason why Satan went that way is because he was ambitious. Ambition gets him in trouble. And because of his pride, he says to himself, I will be like God. His ambition was the problem, not the pride.
Pride is a character trait. Ambition is an action mechanism.
Action mechanism, and that's what...
Yeah, it makes you take action on something.
That's right. Why did he do that? Because
it definitely not pride. I know some really prideful people, John. I'm so prideful about knowing the most prideful people on planet Earth. And they don't do anything.
Yeah, they have no ambition.
They do not have an ambition to do. At most, they have is to belt something out.
Yeah, so pride is not really the problem. We can deal with the pride, just shoot you. Just die. But if they're ambitious, we got a problem, because they're going to start things.
They're also going to maneuver around you.
Or maneuver around you. They're going to do stuff with ambition.
A person who's ambitious innately understands that there's things in the way. They want a thing out there. And as they move down, they're going to move out of the way, because at some point their ambition is going to be is run into friction, and they have to decide if their ambition is more valuable to them than to relent to the friction. Well, and if the ambition is going over the top of it, which is what if you say an ambitious person, that's what they mean, which is effectively when there's friction, they overcome it because they're unstoppable in their cessation of going in that direction.
Yeah, but their ambition is what will get them into action or get them into trouble.
Correct.
And the devil was ambitious.
Yeah, this makes sense.
His ambition was the problem.
If he was
because all the angels knew that they were great and glorious and great. They didn't get, but they weren't ambitious.
When I think about it, like a really prideful person, just imagination, it's like a person on the porch who's just like criticizing everything on planet Earth.
Yeah.
And going like, oh, I could do that. I can do that so much better than that person over there who's got 50 more years than me.
That sounds like
I could run this country so much better than them.
That sounds
Yeah,
like,
but you're just sitting here on a porch doing nothing. Because I mean, that's what people.
You're talking like a hillbilly, buddy.
I mean, that's what complainer types are often doing. Not in all cases, but they're usually doing that. They have pride that's like overcoming them, where they themselves are like larger than the thing. It's interesting. A whole nother time about. I think we talked about this levels of consciousness. It's a categorical way to understand the levels of somebody's. The origin, I would say, effectively of what state their spirit is in. It is spirit driven, and it could be like, for example, if you're in like the lower portions, your body and your mind have poisoned your spirit to where your spirit has now attached itself to those things rather than higher things, where the spirit is then commanding the body and the mind to get where it needs to be, that's a higher level of operation.
Yeah.
So what a lot of people don't realize is, like, for example, that pride is actually really high on that list. It's still, though, in what's called the area of untruth, and ergo, it's actually life-destroying, not life-enhancing. But it is at the absolute top of that. So it is more powerful state than any other negative state. Powerful being can do things because you have a sense that you can do things at a higher level than somebody else or whatever. Whereas there's other states which are like hopelessness, where you have even less desire to do things because you don't even believe that you could. Pride believes that it can when it could not.
Well, we also need to know the difference between pride and arrogance. I know I can do something. That doesn't make me arrogant. I have a certain amount of pride that I can do, that I can build a doghouse, I can build a house. But if you get arrogant about it, it's another story. But
I find that's a use of the definite.
What I meant to say is
pride has kind of different definitions, and unfortunately they use the same word, and it's really not helpful.
Yeah, and arrogance and confidence is what I meant.
Confidence.
Some people can be confident, but they're not arrogant.
Correct.
And so,
and it is and by the way, I've normally found,
and weaker minds do not like confident people.
Well, I would say what it is people who are of low confidence tend to see people who are confident as arrogant, and it tends to be because they are they are projecting their own sense of confidence.
Right, and they have no ambition.
I mean, dude, I'll tell you, like, a confident person will confidently not do stuff because they confidently know that is not for them.
Yeah, that's not there.
Whereas what you're talking about, like, I'd say, I bet you can't jump off that roof, John. You're like, can't jump off that roof. I can confidently tell you I cannot jump off that roof. I can more than anyone else on earth, I can't jump off that roof.
Yeah.
Whereas what you're talking, the other alternative is like, oh yeah, of course I could. Of course I can jump off that roof. Well, that's like an arrogant person.
Yeah, I know one guy that can do that, though. That's what makes me mad. And he landed on his feet. He did a flip and landed on his feet. I went, Nate, what the heck? How did you do that? But anyway, and that was a long ways down.
But this is
higher than your roof.
This is why confidence matters, because confidence, especially hidden. This, by the way, I love the fact we're talking about confidence. We actually really should have an entire episode on confidence, because I came into the awareness of the importance of confidence while I was in the Marine Corps in like training essence, which is just the need to project confidence and to gain confidence, not so that you can do things that you can't do, but so that you could do the things that you can do at the highest level you can. Because if you don't have confidence, but you could do something,
Did you hear that, folks? That's it.
You will not do it at the level that you're capable of, which means you are not actually operating at the level that you're anointed to do in life.
So next week on Catch the Vision, we're going to talk about confidence and arrogance and some of the levels of that confidence and that thing that Mike just talked about. Because another thing about leaders is they need to have confidence, but they also must avoid arrogance. You know, yes. And I understand that they're confident, and some are really good at preaching and confident about preaching, but they're also convinced that they're really good and fantastic at preaching. And so it went into arrogance. And suddenly, you know, we discount them because they're arrogant. So I I look forward to, we need to have some discussion about that.
I'm gonna
make a point there.
Yeah, I'm gonna try to, whenever we get these ideas, just kind of write them down and like maybe put a sticky right here.
Yeah, I'm gonna remind you, but we're gonna talk about that again. Those that have joined us, make a comment, whether YouTube or on Facebook, and please say something that you got something out of this whole thing, especially Proverbs 25, 4, I think it is, 25, 2. It's the glory of God to conceal a thing, but the honor of kings to search out a matter. That is a powerful scripture that we need to understand, and we have to have mystery or we're dead. We're in trouble because we get arrogant. We get confident. I know that book, and I know that chapter, and I know every page, and I memorized it. Yeah, big deal, but you got no mystery.
I'll also say, John, like, just, again, these are like these kinds of phrases that it's like until it's been revealed to you, you're just like, yeah, okay, you know, whatever. The road to truth is in the mystery. Because you don't know the things. The things that you know are only part of the puzzle. So if all you do is you hang out in that. That's why people who are like over reliant on, who are not, for example, scientists and are over reliant on science, they don't really understand that people who are actual scientists or actually in this field, they know that they don't know. That's why they're trying to figure out. They actually have an insatiable desire to go and try to find out what is true. And they get dick kicked a lot. If they're actually touching at nebulous stuff, they get hit a lot. And so you can find out.
Yeah.
That's why, like, I'm a big proponent of like going out there and just really going and doing something, because then you find out the truth of a matter, and it's normally it's really simple in some ways that no one knows, and it's really complex in all the other ways that people think are simple.
That's why, quickly before we sign off, why last night we were in a meeting and 3 or 4 of us had actual words given to us by the Spirit, knowledge and interpretation and understanding to share with someone that got healed and touched by God last night. And we didn't have all the answers. We were a little bit in a mysterious mode to some degree. But then mine and a couple of the others were the seeking type. What are you saying in this, God? And I had the word, and this one had the word, and that one had the word, and this person was extremely helped because we were moving in the Spirit and not in just brains. We weren't just in that that chapter. We got that chapter down. Well, yeah, that's good. Pat on the back, that's great. But that's not enough. You have to have that other than you. There's an other than, and it's way past you.
That's a really good point, John.
The other than is huge. And
it is.
A lot of times we don't know that because we haven't dealt with the other than you, other than humans.
That's how you get humbled, for one.
You do get humbled. You get humble and you get needy because you go, if you don't do it, God, we're in trouble here. And that's why I said to the drug addict one time, I said, look, when I was all alone in the darkest hour, I said, Jesus, I'm all alone here. I can't get there where you want me to be. I can't get there where I want to be. You got to come and get me. You have to come and get me, Lord. And I'm at that stage all the time now. Come and get me. If you don't come and get me, we in trouble. And I came to the end of myself, the end of the book. I got all that down, but I had to have him come and get me. So next week, we're going to talk about this and confidence and a couple other things, and we're going to try to get that blurb going. I rely on Mike to do that because the blurb in the front is important, and it's a really nice picture of me and Mike. Catch the vision and on leadership that we're talking about, really.
Yep.
And by the way, I found out that no other Christian effort, group, whatever, is doing this kind of thing that we've been doing for 2 years anywhere. Now, there's some guys sitting down talking about scriptures.
Of course.
And they're explaining scriptures, and they're all pontificating on the. That's all well and good, but we're down to earth, a little more down to earth about this stuff. We're trying to bring it out for the people's benefit to grow from there and go from here to the next step. We're a little bit different on that, and we're different people. We're not all.
The way I always look at it, just real simple. I bring a left brain perspective, and you bring a right brain perspective.
Wait a minute, I was the left brain dude. Wait a minute.
I mean,
Now we got an argument.
is it
Now the whole argument will destroy.
I mean, is it the most perfect metaphor? No, but it's actually pretty apt.
Yeah, I got
it's pretty apt actually.
Yeah. So join us again next week, 8 a.m. ish.
Yep.
To 9 to see me and hear me, and Mike will be with us. I wouldn't do it without Mike. Blessings. Talk to you later.